My Humble Abode by Zhang Zhuyang and Jaden Law. Farewell, 2055. I was at the carnival with my friends when we came across a tent that was shaped like a time machine. Standing at the entrance was the carnival cyborg. Step in, boy. Come experience an adventure. With my friends cajoling, I carefully stepped into the time machine. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? It is 2055 now, and already we could easily teleport ourselves to places. Surely it would be safe to dive into the future. I felt a sudden swoosh, and with a loud thud, everything outside went silent. I peeked out and realized I was in the future, in 2114. Amazingly, it was just the same when I predicted it in 2014 when I was 10 years old. My future home. This place looked oddly familiar. As I was trying to get my bearings, I realized that I was actually standing right in front of my future house. It was my house. I was certain of it, because there was a sign on the front door that said Zhang Zhuyang's house. I wanted to barge through the doors to explore my house, but then I remembered that my 10-year-old self wanted a house that could transform into a piece of paper. Then I could fold it and keep it in my pocket when I was not in. I searched for the button on the side of the door that said FOLD, fold, and pressed it. To my delight, it really did turn into a piece of paper. Satisfied, I pressed the UNFOLD, unfold button, to bring my 10-story house back again. Upon entering my house, I realized it was exactly the same as I had predicted. Could that creative writing class I had back in 2014 been magical? They told us to imagine our dreams in 100 years' time, and here I was, standing in my own home with a secret basement that contained my secret lab, my very own shopping mall, and on level 7, a whole level dedicated to an arcade, and even a private cinema. I was getting very excited at the thought of having my friends over so that we could play games and watch movies together in my swanky home, even those that had not been released in the cinema. A flying car. While I was still exploring the house, I heard a faint noise from somewhere in my head. Then, just as suddenly, I heard my mother's voice. "Soo-young, we're running low on insects for dinner later. Can you please fly out to get some more? Thanks." As I was still trying to make sense of the message, I heard a honk right outside the window. Looking out, there was a flying red car waiting for me. Quickly, I hopped into it and took off. To where? I was not sure. But this adventure was turning out to be really interesting. As I flew, I caught a glimpse of what it was like living in a future. there were more cyborgs in 2114 than in 2055. Apparently, they were like the police guarding us from wars. I even saw a robot talking to a child, and it seemed as if it was trying to teach the child something. A teacher robot? That was pretty cool. There was still so much more to see, and as I steered my car to explore more, I realized it was not doing my bidding. Instead, it brought me back to where I first arrived, at my front door, as if indicating that my time here was up. Dejectedly, I walked towards the time machine and took a last look at my future home to be before stepping in to return to reality in 2055.
100 Years From Now by Jaden Tan. Natural and man-made environments are merged. In 2114, Singapore is a modern, clean, and high-tech city-state. The inaugural cloud seeding rocket program was launched in 2114. This project, which is repeated every year, successfully creates a supercloud covering the entire landmass of Singapore. This brings the average temperature of Singapore down to a cool 20 degrees Celsius. Life is not confined to the land in Singapore 2114. Colonies in the air and underwater are commonplace as well. Residents use multimodal cars that can be driven on land, underwater, and in the air. Schools are centralized play camps, which allow school children to learn through interactive games and social exchanges. With educational ideologies that stem from the ancient mantra lifelong learning, which surfaced in Singapore more than a century ago, all citizens are literate and engaged learners. Singapore is also crime-free, as security cameras are installed everywhere and electronic law enforcement robots patrol the streets at all times. Tourists and business travelers choose Singapore as their choice destination for its safety and modernity. The mighty towers of Singapore. Singapore's numerous skyscrapers, at least 70 stories tall, adopt state-of-the-art technology in construction and maintenance. Each building is powered by clean energy sources, mainly wind and solar power. Some exterior building surfaces are plated with shimmering nanotechnology plates that behave like chameleons, changing their appearance constantly to bring color and life to the city. Others are covered in vegetation to clean the air and encourage biodiversity. Species that have once been threatened by extinction find Singapore 2114 a safe haven. Cutting-edge technology. A full-body scanner is installed in every building's main entrance to medically analyze residents walking through. In this way, a full-body checkup is done almost daily. This early detection saves many lives. Fabric sprays will make clothes in a flash. These clothes will be worn about 3 times and then thrown out for recycling. These spray-on clothes form a thin and strong outer covering. This method saves detergent and water for a cleaner and greener Singapore. Recycling bins are replaced by a giant network of pipes linked to underground factories that process rubbish into environmentally friendly and safe energy. Family life in the world's strongest state. Singaporean families still live together harmoniously. homogeneous designs with minimal variation make urban planning and construction efforts more efficient. Self-expression is encouraged though. Microcapsules are used to decorate a house, so decorating your room will be a breeze. The microcapsules are simply tossed at a wall, and the surface is painted evenly with one color of choice. Last but not least, there is genuine peace, harmony, respect, and graciousness among the residents. There is no more war, as the entire world has finally sorted out the allocation of food resources, created enough meaningful jobs for all mankind, and generated abundant prosperity for most countries. Singapore in 2114 is a culmination of past generations' hard work and enterprising spirit. Green Superpowers, A Tribute to Gaia, by Sharifa Safia and Gillian Hong. Barren Land. The year is 2110, and the human race, together with Earth, has come a long way since. From 3 world wars, massive deforestation and logging activities, to uncontrolled pollution that are known to exist but remain unacknowledged, all in the name of furthering our quality of life, have unquestionably put a huge toll on our planet. The Earth as we come to know it in 2110 is barren land, with metal and glass skyscrapers lining the roads. No one ever spends time outside now, because it is just too unhealthy, and not to mention putrid and hot. Even while commuting indoors, oxygen tubes are inserted into our noses to help us breathe easily. Such is the depressing scene of Singapore if we choose not to look after it properly. I could envision clearly what it might be, and I simply could not let it happen. I was determined to do something to help save our planet. Hence, armed with a fully equipped research laboratory along with 2 of my very best friends, we decided to pursue our long overdue experiment on trying to create a serum that protects plants from harsh conditions, and an antidote that counteracts pollution of any kind. Accidental discovery. However, while doing our experiments one day, there was suddenly a deafening boom, and the laboratory was covered in thick green and purple smoke. It first smelled of burnt wood, but later became an odd, though rather pleasant, mixture of floral and musky scents. I could hear my co-researchers, Gillian and Emma, calling out to ask if anybody was hurt. We were all fine, but just felt a little funny inside. As a precaution, our laboratory had to be shut down for a week. With nowhere to go, we decided to grab a bite. It was only on our way to Swenson's for ice cream that we realized peculiar things starting to happen. Dying plants were slowly coming back to life when Gillian walked past them. A limping cat approached Emma, and upon rubbing its paw on her, it strutted off with feline grace. As for me, I noticed shots of small lightning-like currents interspersing my fingers. Transformed. We slowly came to a conclusion that whatever happened in the laboratory that fateful day had led us to have unique abilities, one that we were determined to use to help save our environment. It took 4 years for us to harness and control our powers. Emma has the power of reviving extinct animals and multiplying the number of endangered ones. Since then, she has invented a time machine to go back into the past in search of extinct animals to cast a spell on them that will protect them from any harm. She is also constantly looking out for endangered animals as well, to protect them from becoming extinct, thus ensuring their survival on this earth. Gillian, on the other hand, has wonderful healing power. She can heal trees when they are going to die. She has even fashioned a special potion called Herbivora that can make dying or diseased trees flourish by pouring it into the soil around the trees. The ingredients are carrot, papaya, banana, sand, plastic cups and bags, leftovers from dinners, dried leaves and sheep's wool (unused). The Water a Tree for Life annual event was organized to educate people to use clean, recycled water for watering plants. This is also the time where everyone who wishes to have their hair cut will be encouraged to send their unwanted hair to us, where it will be collected and sent to a fashion house that does excellent coats made from hair. For me, I have the power to create clean energy, like generating electricity. Burning of fuels to create energy will be a thing of the past. With cleaner air, due to lesser air pollution from factories, the earth will be a much cooler place to live in, as more green plants will thrive, and lesser people will suffer from asthma attacks due to filthy air. I am also working on preventing radioactive waste from being dumped into the sea to protect the plants and animals. The ozone layer will be protected and nursed back to how it was in the beginning of time, and everyone will live by the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Such are our powers and commitment to save Mother Earth, that from 2114 and beyond, the Earth will be a much cooler place to live in. To a better future.
My Home, My Singapore in 2114 by Caleb Low. 9th August 2014 marks Singapore's 49th year as a fully independent nation. As we celebrate this milestone, it is a good time for us to reflect on what home means to us and what we hope our city-state will be like in 100 years. Will it be very modern, full of towering skyscrapers and sleek facilities? Will mega supermarkets and e-markets replace wet markets? Will tablets and e-readers holding millions of books replace libraries? Will we still have dinners and gatherings, or will social media and online chat groups replace physical meetups? All I wish is for Singapore where I can belong. There are many things I identify with here. Not just the physical aspects such as familiar housing estates and my school, but softer aspects too. Singlish, the unique Singapore culture, and the world-famous Singaporean cuisine that we enjoy here at home all speak of home to me. The word home reminds me most of my family. I grew up in 2 households. I stayed with my grandparents in their flats in Woodlands until I was 3 years old. During that time, my parents took me back to their house only on the weekends as they were busy at work. Staying with my grandparents was truly memorable for me. I remember going to the wet market with my grandmother every morning with her friends and being greeted by the hustle-bustle and the fragrant smell of fruits and vegetables in the air. I also remember playing games with my cousins and walking to the nearby spice gardens with my grandparents. But my favorite memory lay in the kitchen. I remember fondly the inviting smells of chicken rice and roast duck cooked by my grandmother. Dinners were fancy affairs attended by my parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. In comparison, My parents' home was a modern and quiet condominium in Hougang with modern amenities. My childhood in two very different homes made me appreciate and respect my parents and grandparents very much. They made me feel loved, safe, and secure. A home is not just a house with furniture. It represents a place filled with happiness and where family members help one another and do fun things together. Families are the building blocks of Singapore's society. This is where my family, friends, relatives, and roots are, and where I feel safe and secure. My home, in a word, is my life. Here, I feel that I can achieve my goals and dreams. I have many ideas of what I want to be when I grow up. There are many opportunities and possibilities for me here, as Singapore is a vibrant and colourful city with a strong economy. This is the Singapore I want in 2114.
A Singaporean Dream by Gillian Hong. I'm 13, well, almost that age, and I haven't seen much of Singapore, just the short stage. But what I see is beautiful and green, a country with an almost new sheen. The technology that sends us into the future so far fills the streets, the phones, tablets, cars. They will stay with us for eons to come. A techno world we will become. Right now, as I walk down the streets, workers, shoppers, people rushing for important meetings. Not a single person stops to wave. If this is so, what relationships are there to save? And then I walk past a hunched old lady, tissues in hand, pleading for some to buy her wares, her white hair and her messy strands. My heart stops. My heart is tugged. Why won't anyone stop? An executive, a tourist with suitcase lugged. I dream of a place that's just as green as today. Newly discovered plants, I cannot say. When people on the sidewalks stop to admire the trees, the flowers, not destroyed by fire. I hope that we'll be harmonious and connected. No one so lonely they defected from the bonds of friendliness and care. Any challenge greatly will always fare. I wish for a Singapore where we know when to share, when to stop, help, for others we care. A tightly knitted society, knowing each and every one, always enjoying each other's company, learning to have fun. Yet I'm just a girl, a newly minted teenager. What can I do? Move a leaf, I wager? But others have the same dream, though silent it seems. I believe if we work together, we could fly, as light as a feather, unburdened by the bounds of peer pressure and stress. We could make Singapore a paradise, I confess.
A typical day in Singapore 2114. Inspired by our budding writers from PPIS Student Care Centre, Jurong. Off to school in 2114. Amigo! Sahiralak greeted his classmates, flexing his signature thumbs-up sign across his chest. Water rushed out of the underwater classroom with a loud, sucking sound as he yanked the door open. He smiled to himself, happy that the force shield, designed by his genius classmate Sayamin, to ensure that all buildings in Singapore 2114 were waterproof, was in perfect working order. His fellow classmate Sajad rushed behind him. Sajad quickly dusted the water droplets off his new blue pants. He did not want to get his clothes damp.
He sat beside Zikri, who was wearing a blue shirt. The two friends looked at each other and burst out laughing that their clothes matched. Ever wanting to be dressed uniquely, even for school, Sajjad exclaimed, "I'll change my clothes to something different. I am thinking lime green." With that last word, Sajjad's pants glowed brightly and turned lime green within seconds. Happy that his clothes were still in one of his favorite colors, Sajjad chatted excitedly with Zikri about Khalifa's birthday party that they were invited to attend after school. Blast from the past. Soon, lessons for the day started. The students listened in astonishment at how Singapore used to be on dry land a century ago. There were no colorful pet robots to sing you to sleep and comfort you 100 years ago? Asked Sakina incredulously. People did not live in submarines either. Their robot teacher, Mr. Roboto, said. At that, Akesha, who was proud of his submarine home, sighed with relief that he lived in the 22nd century. Time travel portals did not exist back then as well. The children gasped with surprise and clamored to pepper Mr. Roboto with more questions. Nurin raised her hand. What about food? Did Singaporeans in the past only eat hamburgers and drink squid ink like we do now? Amira jumped in next with a question. What about the robots going around giving us money whenever we need some? The lively discussion continued till the octopus bell flailed its 8 tentacles wildly to signal the end of class. An out-of-this-world birthday party. The children continued talking about historical Singapore as they zipped out of their underwater school. They arranged to meet up at Khalifa's house, where he was celebrating his 9th birthday. Khalifa and his family lived way up above the ocean. Some students put on their clip-on wings and helmets and zoomed upward. Others hopped onto the floating buses, waiting to take them to outer space, where Khalifa's family lived in a stylish rocket. The children could hardly wait for the red traffic light to change from red lobster, which meant stop, to green seaweed, which meant go. Finally, they alighted from the floating buses and entered the spacious rocket living room. The children waved the magical wand attached to the television set and shouted out the name of their favorite cartoon show, followed by a loud kaboom to activate the screen. They happily watched the program while house robots shuttled busily around them, serving food and drinks. Khalifa's parents, who took special leave from work, joined the happy children in feasting and celebrating their son's birthday. A prehistoric treat. Suddenly, the house shell rang. It was Megan the Merry Mermaid from next door, who was an amphibian. Do you and your friends have some free time next week, say Friday? Let's visit the friendly dinosaurs, squealed Megan, who aspired to be a dinosauritarian, a veterinarian for dinosaurs. The children excitedly huddled together in the living room to plan their upcoming time-traveling trip. 3 girls, who were all named Putri, volunteered to start a list. They carefully jotted down spacesuits and waterproof clothes to protect them from the radiation and rain. Who knew what sort of weather would greet the time travelers in prehistoric Singapore? It was better to be well prepared. After puzzling over what else could possibly be essential on their journey to see the dinosaurs, Azim had a brainwave. Shall we bring our pet robot dinosaurs with us? They can play with the real dinosaurs and heal any sick ones with their infrared light beams too, he exclaimed. The children took turns to add to the ever-growing list of items for their excursion the next Friday. Finally, it was time to head home for dinner with their families. The children queued at the public teleportation stand in the Space Colony's community center. In turn, each child took a giant leap into the teleportation device and was transported right back home.
The Time Traveler's Decision by Phua Junhao, from 2014 to 2114. After decades of hard work and nearly giving up on many occasions, my time machine was finally completed. Many cynics had jeered at me. They said that such a contraption was impossible and that I was insane to even try. I shall tell you now, it was possible. Taking a deep breath, I entered my shiny new time machine and turned the time dial to 1st January 2114. I gingerly pressed the start button. A faint humming started up and the motherboard began to glow. I started spinning, faster and faster, down a brightly colored tunnel, which mouthed and warped like plastic, melting in high heat. I woke up in a curiously smooth bed, which was shaped like a pod. I swung my legs over the edge of the mattress and wondered if I had bought new furniture for my bedroom. Everything looked strange and surreal. Something was wrong. My feet dangled high above the ground. With amazement, I patted my face and body. My limbs had shrunk. I discovered I was 10 years old again. I spied bright objects dipping and diving in the distance. I realized with delight that they were spaceships. I had finally achieved my dream of time traveling to Singapore 2114. A familiar future. "Good morning, my boy," a familiar voice boomed from somewhere below my room. A laughing voice interjected. "Wake him up gently, will you? Get washed up, Junhao. I made your favorite breakfast." I recognized those voices anywhere. They were my parents, who worked abroad since I was a child. I have not seen them in years. How wonderful to hear their familiar voices again. I spent a leisurely breakfast with my beloved parents and caught up with their lives on Singapore's first space colony. After breakfast, I flew off to school, gliding on the pair of wings my father attached to my back. My detachable brains. To my astonishment, the teachers that filled my primary school were all robots. I was spooked and tried to edge around them to get to my classroom. When I finally found my class, I saw that my form teacher already typed his name in blocky letters on the big screen in the front of the room. Mr. IR 612534 then instructed us to take out our brains. How am I even supposed to do that? I thought wildly. I started looking for an escape. My teacher came to me and said in a metallic-sounding voice, "Do I have to repeat my instructions?" I shook my head mutely. Mr. IR 612534's cold claws went to my head and pulled out something, which squelched as it left my skull. He left my brain on my desk and continued his lesson. Equal proportions of disgust and curiosity warred within me. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that twinkling strips of data flowed from my robotic teacher's mouth and wormed into my brain. They circulated briefly before they disappeared. I realized that the lesson was captured in my mind automatically. After a refreshing day of absorbing new knowledge, I flew home with mighty flaps of my wings. I thoroughly enjoyed being an athletic 10-year-old boy again. The life-changing decision, to stay or to go. My parents were waiting for me at the door of our rocket house. They smiled widely at my arrival and welcomed me with big hugs. my hand went to the small controller in my pocket that would take me back to Singapore I belonged to, 100 years ago. Should I return to the past? Could I not stay in the future with my parents? I now had a chance to live my life all over again, and in a space colony at that. My father put his arms around my shoulder. My mother lovingly tousled my hair and asked how my day went. I discreetly tossed the ticket to my old life into the thick bushes outside my front door as I told my parents all about the new things I learned at school. Singapore 2114, a dream or a vision. Inspired by our budding writers from Lakeside Family Services. An adventure through time. Rays of sunshine peeped through the cracks of my bedroom curtains. I thanked my lucky stars that I had some time to laze around before breakfast. Sleepily, I tapped on my phone to check the time. Suddenly, a great tremor rocked me. Everything in my room spun wildly around. The floor collapsed beneath me, and I was dragged into a whirlpool of chaos that opened under me. Just when I thought my arms and legs would fly off, everything stopped. I crashed to the ground with a loud thud. It took all my energy to force my eyes open as I felt horribly sick. I looked up and realized that I was no longer in my room. Impossible. The terrain around me had completely changed. The sky was a shimmering gold and the ground was dry and scorched. In the distance, I saw humongous red buildings that glistened in the sun and seemed to wobble in the breeze. A strange new friend with a strange new name. Are you lost? I nearly jumped out of my skin. A girl around my age who was extremely amused by my confusion stood in front of me. In the most composed voice I could manage, I replied, "Yes, I think I am. Where are we?" "We're in Singapore, of course. Pasir Ris to be exact," she chirped. I was stunned. I had lived in Singapore all my life, but I had never seen such a sight before. Just then, I spotted a sign that read, "Best Chicken Rice of 2114. My mind raced. Had I traveled in time? Was that whirlpool a portal? Maybe I should slap myself to try and wake up. The girl poked at my arm. "You look like you need a guide." "Well, come on, I'm heading into town anyway. I'm Momo Fofo," she introduced herself cheerily. I followed her as she walked through the tree-lined streets. The trees, however, looked different and were cold to touch. I rapped on one and bruised my knuckles. Momo Fofo chuckled and revealed, "We created trees out of bronze and copper to stop them from being cut down. Anyway, even if we cut one down, two will grow in its place." I noticed that some people were shaking the trees with pots in hands. Before my surprised eyes, the leaves fell into the waiting pots and burst into flames. The people hurried to take meats out from their bags to cook on the fire. Orchard Road, 100 years from now, still Singapore's shopping paradise. Momo Fofo and I came to a row of lifts. I followed her into one labeled Orchard. Inside the lift, there was only one large red button. Momo Fofo punched it and the doors slid shut. Immediately, the lift lurched violently. Just as abruptly, the lift doors flew open. I stumbled out just in time to hear Momo Fofo's proud proclamation. "This is Orchard, the biggest shopping area in Singapore." On the streets, I noticed people with mini laptops that were folded into the size of a tissue paper after use. The red buildings I saw earlier rose around me. On closer inspection, I realized that they were made of jelly. People leapt from rooftop to rooftop. Men and women in office attire, teenagers, and even schoolchildren bounced on the jelly buildings to get around. Suddenly, a siren wailed. "Oh no, it's going to rain," Momo Fofo yelled. She grabbed me by my arm as she sprinted towards the building ahead. My ears were assaulted with the loud thuds of heavy objects hitting the ground. I turned around and saw that the streets were pelted with sparkling stones. These were no ordinary stones. They were emeralds, rubies, and diamonds. Some pedestrians who wore elastic pants and shirts stretched out their clothing to collect the falling treasures. We had barely stepped out from the building when I heard booming footsteps. I must have looked bewildered because Momo Fofo burst out in a fit of giggles. "I guess you haven't met our dinosaurs," she chuckled. "What?" I screamed in alarm. "There are dinosaurs? We have to get out of here," I shouted. A dark shadow stretched over me. When I glanced up, I saw a frightful sight. A huge orange dinosaur with sharp teeth towered above me. It had a red eye, which shot lasers around, and had rough-looking skin and spikes on its body. I was paralyzed with fright. Thankfully, Momo Fofo comforted me with a smoothing pat on my shaking back and explained that these robot dinosaurs helped Singapore. They monitored the city, saving people from natural disasters and other catastrophes. The lasers were mostly used to kill mosquitoes. Back to Singapore 2014. In this new world, I felt like a stranger. I wanted to go home to my Singapore, where there were no metal trees, dinosaurs, or jelly buildings. I wanted to go home. "What's wrong?" my new friend whispered as she wiped a tear from my cheek. I smiled and slid my phone from my pocket. Instinctively, I clicked the home button, but nothing happened. Panic rose in my chest. In frustration, I slammed my palm against my phone, and boom! I was hurtled through the air as everything turned foggy and blue. I struggled to keep my vision clear as I felt my strength draining away. Everything went black. I woke up with a jolt. It only took a moment to recognize my surroundings. I was back in my room. Home sweet home. The smell of toast and freshly baked cookies filled the air and my belly rumbled. I heard my parents moving around the kitchen. I was truly home. That sure was a crazy dream. Or was it not?
How I Discovered a Time Travel Portal in My Room by Isaac Chi. More than spring cleaning. Stomp, stomp, stomp. I dragged my heavy feet to my room. I had to finish a chore I hated, packing my room. Buoyed by the promise of meeting my friends after housekeeping, I tried to clean up as fast as I could. Suddenly, I spotted something glinting in the corner of my room. As I approached it, my right foot fell through a shimmering vortex that appeared suddenly. With a scream, the rest of me followed. A whooshing sound followed by a cold wind that told me I was still alive. The first thing I saw was a tall signboard with the words, "Welcome to Singapore." My interest piqued. I walked through the gates of the city. Welcome to Mars. As I peered around, I was stunned by a burst of light. When I opened my teary eyes, a tall man was standing in front of me. He said, "Welcome to Mars, stranger. I'm William." William continued, "I created an opening in the past to bring you here so that you can tell everyone about the future. Our country was flooded, so we decided to leave the planet. The scientists engineered people to live comfortably on Mars so that we do not need air to breathe. Come, he said, let's view some of the sights. We can talk as we sightsee. William explained, everyone here has perfect eyesight because we all have robotic eyes. We do not need water and air to survive. He paused and gestured to a clear pond in front of us. Our famous Merlion has also come alive. Summoned by William's words, I saw a creature with a milky white lion head and a fish tail pop shyly out of the water. My tummy suddenly rumbled. I clutched it in embarrassment. William chuckled. Come on, lunch is on me. Shall we head to my favorite restaurant? Before long, I was faced with a spread of juicy hamburgers, crispy fries, and succulent strawberries. I could barely restrain myself from gobbling everything up. After that satisfying meal, we put on our wings and flew, free as birds, around futuristic Singapore for a tour. Seeing a familiar sight in the distance, I drove towards it at top speed. The Singapore Flyer was still standing on the banks of the Marina Barrage. Families waved excitedly at me through the thick glass of the cabins. They motioned with their hands, inviting me to take a spin with them. Although I would have liked to stay longer, I knew that I had a duty to return to the Singapore I am familiar with. William nodded understandingly. Return home and let Singaporeans know that this wondrous future awaits their children and grandchildren. Suddenly, a portal opened up in front of me to take me back to year 2014. This time, I stepped into it, unafraid.
5 Things to Do in Singapore 2114 by Chua Yi-Xuan. A century ago, most people flew to their holiday destination on a plane. For the modern Singaporean, my method is somewhat similar. I teleport using a toilet bowl on the plane. Today, Singapore is an inclusive space colony. We welcome everyone, even aliens and zombies. Number 1. Attending Mr. Rombi's 2's class. My teacher, Mr. Rombi 2, is a big, fat, friendly zombie who gives us good tips on making ecologically friendly bombs. We unleash these bombs onto bad people's houses. These bombs will turn everything and everyone in the house a bright blue. This color cannot be washed off till the person truly repents. This is to warn bad people to walk the straight path. Number 2. Recipe for alien cakes. My best friend in school is an alien called Meeb. Meeb and I spend recess together where we trade homemade snacks. His mother makes the best alien cake in the universe. It is not hard to make at all. You just need 100 grams of space dust, 25 stars, and a dollop of meteor paste. Mix that all up and bake for 365 days in the Milky Way. I guarantee that you will love it. Number 3. To the moon and back. After school is out, I usually go to the moon where there is a beautiful viewing platform. Sometimes, pea green moon rabbits appear and you can talk to one if it is in the mood. If you stay long enough, you can see the earth turn on its axis. I squint and stare, trying to imagine how humans in the past lived on that watery planet. Number 4. Out and about town. I also like to occasionally pop over to the Esplanade to eat durians with my friends. The vendors there charge the same price for a box of durians as they are all robots. To purchase some durians, you slot a gold coin into the robot's hand. One coin is equivalent to $20,000 of your money. Do not be alarmed if you hear a clacking noise. That is simply the robot durian vendor opening up the spiny fruit with its boxy body. Behold! A neat tray of creamy yellow durian seeds will slide out soon. Number 5. An invitation to the narrator's home. As my friends, you are all invited to visit me at home. My house is controlled entirely by my phone. If it is a hot day, I can turn on the air conditioner while on my way back. The house would be nice and cool by the time I arrive. I can also command my household appliances to prepare us a sumptuous meal. As it is a smart house, it automatically knows what our favorite foods are. Have I interested you in dropping by Singapore for a nice space vacation? Do say you'll pay me a visit. You can even borrow my teleporting toilet bowl.
A Conversation. Looking back on the past 100 years by Ho. Extreme Living. It will be my 110th birthday soon, and I have never felt better. As someone who lived through the different ages, come closer and let me tell you about the many wonderful things I saw. I never believed that humankind would be able to achieve all these accomplishments in such a short time. Fancy us living somewhere other than the surface of the earth. In fact, we have taken to living in extreme places. You might think it is unbearable, impossible even, to live inside a volcano. It is actually quite cozy. The temperature is constant, at about 1100 degrees Celsius, and there is light everywhere we go. We do not feel the heat, as our brilliant scientists have added fire resistivity to our bodies, along with longevity. Everything inside our volcano is also grandly outfitted in solid gold. It is a sight to behold when the sun shines at just the right angle into the mouth of our home. Everything sparkles and gleams. The advantages of living within a volcano are varied. One of the top reasons is that we never get colds because we are kept warm all the time. Another of my personal favorites is that I can simply fling meat at the walls and grill myself a hearty meal in seconds. Venturing out. We are not confined to living our days in a volcano though. We can go out for trips around the region anytime we want. We all have different modes of transport. My vehicle is called a basketball speedboat. It moves by expelling gusts of air from the basketballs I stock in the engine. A bonus is that I always have a basketball handy for impromptu games with my friends. I usually park my vehicle anywhere I want. This is because Singapore is ranked as the safest country to live in. Peace in an active volcano. We can enjoy this serenity because our beautiful volcano state is guarded by highly trained military forces. Our soldiers are special individuals who can modify their bodies. Under threat, they turn into metal that is resistant to all weapons. While we are a peaceful nation, deterrence is always preferable. While I have retired, my eyesight is still as sharp as an eagle's. When I pledged to protect Singapore, I underwent procedures to make my eyes supersonic, among other superpowers. If you promise not to let anybody else know, I will let you in on a classified secret. I am able to create gold from air and read minds as well. I can sense that you are itching to find out more about my life. Let me tell you about my grandson. He is just like me, a proud Singaporean who is honored to protect everybody living in this volcano. That tall building in the distance belongs to him. We all live there as a big, happy family. My wife and I take one floor, while various other branches of the family occupy the rest of the 9 floors. I see the sun is setting. It is getting late. I must be off. My eyesight, though supersonic, only works best in sunlight. Well, it was nice talking to you. I hope to see you around some other time.